Roddy Turnstone is a Harrisburg-based indie rock artist. His new single, I've Been to the Dungeon Before, is an epic, moody, but catchy piece of music that features guest vocals from Jessica Boyer and violin from Robin Chambers, out now on all streaming platforms. Good morning, everybody. My name is Corey Rosen, and you are listening to the Story Podcast. Today I have on a super awesome guest, Mr. Jeff Pittinger.
Hey, everybody.
Jeff Pittinger is from Montoursville, PA. He started singing at an early age, but not in front of a large crowd until he was 14. Jeff started a band in 1981 called Early Frost. They did covers from Queen, Def Leppard, AC/DC, Ozzy, Alice Cooper, and more. They played many shows in those 2 years, and now Jeff is currently in the bands White Witch, the Benny Ford All-Stars, and Monster TRACK Supergroup, featuring Bret Alexander from the Badlees and Jeremy Hummel from Breaking Benjamin. Monster TRACK Supergroup have released 2 albums and have 1 more on the way, while White Witch has already released 5 albums. Jeff also started a new original music TV show called the Pennsylvania Pipeline Music TV. The show is aired on WHVL in State College, PA, and all social media platforms. Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today, and I really appreciate you for having me. Beautiful weather.
Beautiful weather, yes, indeed. And thanks for coming on. I'm really excited to delve into your story. We were talking a little bit before the show, and you got a lot to talk about. Absolutely. So let's get started. You started singing at an early age, but where did your music of love really come from?
I was born with it. No, really, I was born with it. I knew early on I didn't really have any. I just knew it. But when I saw in 1975, when I saw Alice Cooper on the music awards on TV, I was sitting back then. You had those big floor consoles, the big old TVs. I always sat 2 feet in front of it, and I saw him come out. The crowd was expecting him to be the freak show Alice that everybody knew and they didn't all love him, but some did. So he came out and did Only Women Bleed. And they never, the people in the crowd, a lot of them were crying. They never saw it coming. And I was just so, I was like, that's what I want to do right there. I just knew it. And the boxes, little boxes of inside your head that gathers information, the stuff that was not going to help me or that wasn't going to affect my life, they all just closed. So it was like a prearranged, destinedly planned thing for me. This is all I have. I don't really have anything else. I don't even have a dog right now. Hoping that changes in July, but all I have is this dream and my parents.
So you got that inspiration and you decided to do something with it. What did you do? You started singing not in front of large crowds, but
most of the singing that I did at the time was by myself. When I was things were different back in the 60s. The world was a lot different. You didn't have, we had where I lived, our phone or the phones that we had, there were 5 different parties on one line. It would ring once for one house, 2 for the next house, 3 for the next house, and people could listen into your conversations. I had a great aunt named Marguerite. And we would catch her listening in sometimes. She would always bake cookies and bread, and the buzzer would go off on the oven. And we would hear Marguerite, hang up the phone.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's how life was then. And I mean, even into the 70s, we had a yellow phone on the wall. I remember hearing Queen, Keep Yourself Alive for the first time. And every bell in my body was going off. I'm like, wow, these guys
going.
Yeah, right there. That's exactly what it was. Every bell in my system. I ran to the wall, the yellow phone on the wall, and started calling all my friends saying, oh my gosh, you should see and hear this band called Queen. They're coming from England. I mean, look at these goosebumps. You can't make this stuff up.
I can't imagine what it would have been like to live through the British invasion.
Oh, it was unbelievable. It was absolutely one of the greatest times in musical history to live and see all these bands come from England. And the interesting thing about Alice Cooper was, while all these bands were invading England, he invaded England. And his dad was a minister in the Air Force and bought him this gigantic D-130 airplane, one of those great big ones. And they painted giant letters on it, Alice Cooper. And the day the first day they landed in England, they had like 13 little midgets too, and everybody in the band wore trench coats and they had hair down to their butt. And at that time, Paul McCartney and Wings in '73 owned all the attendance records throughout Europe. And there was one particular venue that everybody wanted to get in. So the first night Alice Cooper Band played there with no advertising whatsoever, they broke Paul McCartney's record, which at the time was like 18,000. They broke it by 1,000 people. That's how much power the original Alice Cooper Band had. That's incredible.
That is incredible. Wow. So you started, you were singing by yourself, and then you decided, hey, maybe I want to do this in front of a crowd. When was that?
I was 14. It was at a fire hall at a wedding, but it went over really well. And I was like, man, I really like the way that felt. I mean, it stuck with me for days. At night, I mean, I was so railed and amped up from it. I was like, man, I got to keep at this. And I was just a kid. I didn't have any money, and we were people back then were poor. It wasn't like you could go out and buy a new PA system and start singing when you're 14. It just wasn't like that.
Got to work for that.
Yeah. And, it's taken years to get to do it right.
So you had that wedding experience, and then did you say, okay, I want to be in a band right now?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to be a singer, and I didn't, I don't have any ways or means or things to do that. And a lot of people around you that I would say, they thought it was just completely outlandish. I mean, back then nobody said stuff like that.
Right.
They just didn't say stuff like that because nobody did it. It isn't like today where you can go to a music store and buy everything. If your parents have money and can buy you stuff, and you can start doing this. But you know what? I'm grateful that I was born at a time where I got to see. I tell this to people, and I'm going to tell this right now to all the people that are down and think things are really bad and so forth. Just think about this. The people that are my age or close to it were born into a time where you got to see every great band from the time they stepped onto the stage, watching their stardom to the rise till the day they die. We've seen it all. And it's not just music. It's NASCAR, it's boxing, it's baseball, football, basketball. I got to see every great game that was ever played, dude. You know what? I got to see it for free. I got a free ticket to see and experience every great thing that's ever happened on this planet.
So you guys definitely lived during the golden age of American influence, for sure.
Absolutely. I'm so blessed to be born. I was born July 23rd, 1961. So I seen it all.
Hey, you got to see Star Wars and Jurassic Park.
Not counting, that's right. Not counting all the great movies.
Yeah.
All the great Westerns, I seen it all, dude, from the time it happened.
And so, when did you decide to start a band? When did you get involved with that kind of thing?
Well, I got things together, and it was between 81 or real early in 82 that I started
Early Frost.
Early Frost. And, I went out, I managed because I didn't really like school. I did when I was young. My first, second grade, I never missed a day. But when I got to like seventh, I knew that this was not going to be school.
Working.
Was not going to be any part of my future. I did go to college at WAC for broadcasting, and I had the best primetime slot on Thursday night because the students went home on Friday. So I had the 8 to 11 slot on Thursday night, and I debuted albums from like Def Leppard, High and Dry, George Thorogood, bands that were just releasing stuff.
That's crazy.
And I got to debut. I can't even count how many albums I debuted, but it didn't get me off. It didn't get me off enough. I mean, I love music, but that just wasn't getting to that spot, where this just ain't enough for me.
Right.
Then I started a band, and I knew right away, I'm like, oh man, this feels really, really good. And all those are going off. So you just know it's not something where, you got to go debate or whatever. For me, I just knew. And the first time I went on stage, I didn't have any butterflies at all. After I sang that first Queen song,
You're just electric.
I was into it, and
Yeah.
and I knew that I'm gonna die doing this.
So what was it like to start a band in '81? How old were you at the time?
Um, let's see, I can tell you exactly. I would be like
In your 20s around.
very early,
Yeah.
very early, like 21 or 22.
So what was it like back then? What was the music scene? You didn't. Did you? You grew up in Montoursville.
Correct.
What was the music scene around in Central PA at that time? I can't imagine it was much.
There wasn't really anything. You know, there were a few people I knew. That there was a band in Montoursville called Little Rock that were some guys that were 2 years older than me at Montoursville. But that, you know, that was what it was what it was then.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, man, there really wasn't too much going on in 1982. It just wasn't. But that changed quickly, you know, when we started White Witch in the fall of '84.
So tell me about that process. What was it like to dissolve one band, start another band?
Well, my drummer and bass player that came into the band, they were in a really good band called Warlock. And Doug was in a band called Merlin. And I was in Early Frost, and it was like a super group. I'm telling you.
Hence why White Witch.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
When we came out, I mean, I had the biggest PA systems. We had the biggest light shows. I mean, you would get pounded or your ears would ring for days. And we would have like bats hanging from the ceiling and blow fire. We were into the Kiss, all the theatrical stuff. Our Halloween shows were epic. And, you know, the one night, the Hooters in the outfield, this was as later in which would have been like 80, I don't know, 86, something like that. They played a show in Williamsport at Lycoming College. And we had an after party at a club called Dinks. It was the best. That's just the Montoursville there bar. And we had an after party there, and it was 9 rows deep at the bar. I mean, it was way out of control for fire code. If there was a fire in there, everybody would have burned. There was just one. There were so many people there, and the singer for the outfield was. We were upstairs. I'm going to say this now because it was life back then. We were upstairs in the dressing room doing lines of coke that were the size of large pencils. Okay. And then we would go downstairs to go on stage, and I look over, and the singer for the outfield was hitting on my girlfriend. And she had a real nice crucifix for an earring. And he was trying to talk her into her giving that to her. And I just was catching, and she said, well, I would, but my boyfriend would probably not like that. And then she said, Jeff, this is a singer for the outfield. And he looked at me and he's like, hey, mate. And just then they announced us to go on stage. So I'm heading up there. And when we came on, I seen that dude's eyes. And I know he's probably saw a little bit over in England, but he ain't never seen nothing like White Witch. His eyeballs were the size of grapefruits. And he was just like, because it was a spectacle of, you know, for an unknown band
Mm-hmm.
in a state of Pennsylvania at that time, worldwide, we were completely unknown. And it was something like that that stuck into my mind. Those kind of stories are, you know who the outfield is. Say It Isn't So, and
Yeah.
Josie's on a vacation far away.
Right.
I have a thing right now, but that's that band. And so time went on, and we started recording, putting out records. We opened for Steppenwolf in '85. It was unbelievable. I got hung. I was in a witch outfit, an 88-year-old seamstress from Minnesota that made clothes for bands like Motley Crue and Ozzy. I managed to get a hold of her. Anyway, I got hung on stage, and the crowd flipped out.
That's crazy.
And at the time when we were done playing, the crowd chanted for 10 minutes straight, 7,000 people, White Witch, White Witch, White Witch. I've had that happen in my brain in sleep 1,000 times since that day. And those are the kinds of things that keep an old dog like me going.
For sure.
I can still hear it in my sleep sometimes.
That's incredible, man. It's those moments that really make all this worth it, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's what gets you from they're stepping stones.
Mhm.
It gets you from part A to part B and part C, and without those dreams and those moments, I mean,
You'll quit.
life's pretty vile,
Yeah.
man. It's stagnant if you don't have something to believe in.
And so for that band, were you a songwriter primarily? You were a singer on that in the band, but were you songwriting? How was the process like for writing music?
Um, I was a singer and a writer. We all wrote. Everybody in it. Well, we collectively wrote our songs. I mean, Doug would write some of the music. I'd write the words. George would write, or Jack Death, as his stage name was. I don't even know where he's at today, but it was every band has different ways of writing material.
Mhm.
Maybe in one band, one guy will primarily write stuff. I mean, I'm not going to get into naming bands because that's their business.
Right.
But all I know is how we did it, and we would do things collectively, and sometimes we have to change stuff up and all. But uh, it was one of the most beautiful things that I've been fortunate enough to live through in my life.
And we have one of your songs, "Change Is Coming,"
That's
from that era.
yeah.
Tell me about that song.
Well, the words pretty much, pretty much tell the tale. And on that particular song, Doug wrote the music, and he wrote half of the words, and I wrote the other half. Sometimes he and I would collaborate on words, and or he would send me something like we still do today.
Mm,
He he physically mails me CDs in the mail
really?
with the music, and he'll write some of the words down and say the rest is up to you. That's how we make music today. That's how
awesome.
we've been making music for the last 25 years. That's how we do it, man. We don't, everybody has a different way, but that's how we do it. I like getting stuff in the mail from him. It makes me feel good. Because if you once you meet him, you'd be like, wow, I got a CD from Doug today. It just makes you feel good because he's a great human being. When I need money for the band or I need stuff, I have it in 3 or 4 days
Mm,
every time. He's never let me down once. Not once in our entire friendship and bands. And Carl, my drummer's the same way. And I want to say, throw a thing out to Carl. A week ago, he had a stroke, and they had to lifeline him to Danville because he was completely gone. I mean, didn't have
wow.
no movement, no speech, no activity.
No, nothing.
And they put some blood thinner in him because he had a big blood clot in his head, and it broke it down enough where they could keep him alive to send him to Danville, and he made it through it, and he's home now, and he starts speech therapy this week, and he can actually walk a little too.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and it's from I don't know how many hundreds of prayers I threw out, but we do have a lot of friends. And all the ones that knew about it. I mean, I only messaged like 5 people, 5 or 6 of my closest people and we're not one of them bands that post stuff on Facebook and, we keep things internal. That's just how we've always done it. It's nobody's business, but now that he got through it, we're praying that he gets a full recovery. I mean, that's another thing. Carl is, as far as the drummer, he was never into partying. After those shows, me and Doug would team up and, get a bunch of what and go after the girls. That's all we did.
Mhm.
That's because it's what we wanted to do. And Carl wasn't that. He always went home. And God's loving me worked damn near 40 years at Kellogg's, taking care of his 3 sons by himself. And then he retired a year ago, and then this happened. So, all these young bands out there that think you got it figured out, the older you get and the harder you push your dream, there's going to be things that happen. And a lot of them are just, big time adversity.
Mhm.
When you start losing friends and things just start coming unraveled. It's just life. And it's going to happen to everybody. Everybody is going to go through some kind of thing. And don't look at your dream as, oh, I failed at this, or oh, woe is me. I don't want to fail at this. You have to look at it as a loving life thing and consider it a blessing that you're even playing and making music. It's
Mm-hmm.
not whether you're going to fail or not, dude. In this world we're in now, very few bands are going to be successful
Yeah.
at being huge.
Right.
And to have this thing where, oh, I don't want to fail, or it's not, that's not how you should look at it.
No, and you should be able to define your own success.
Exactly.
Don't compare yourselves to people
T-
who don't compare yourself to Justin Bieber or like big bands like that. I mean, they first of all, they were kind of born into that life as it was anyway.
Yeah.
And you have to say, okay, what is the goal for band A that I have? If one goal that I want to do is play 5 shows a month, that's success. You can
Yeah.
do that. That's a success. That's
Yeah.
okay.
And you shouldn't be so caught up in, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. And we got a couple hundred views on Spotify or YouTube. That's all great and all. But
Don't lose sight of what you're doing it for.
exactly, you got to love it. It's inside of you. That's why you do it. You're not looking to
Not about the
be,
numbers.
yeah, it's really not. And it took me a while because I'm guilty of that too. When I was younger, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this. And as time goes by, you're like, you know what? I wasn't looking at it the way I should have been. And I see bands do it now, and it's a growing process,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a learning process.
Mm-hmm.
And as time goes by, you start losing a parent here, or a close friend, and life starts. Your dreams change a little bit.
And did you ever think Bob Dylan or Muddy Waters or Prince was thinking, "Oh, I want this to be the next hit"? No, they were just writing songs.
It's the same with Van Halen.
Yeah.
I listened to there used to be a radio show called the King Biscuit Flour Hour. It was a huge national publication on national radio. And I used to sit in my car because I had a $1,000 stereo in my cars. I mean, I picked up the band Head East at the airport to take him to a concert at WAC that the broadcasting department was pushing. And I had the keyboard player and the drummer in my back seat of a 73 Chevy Impala, painted beautiful acrylic. I mean, I spent a lot of money on the paint.
Yeah.
And I had a Bose sound system in my car then. Wow. I mean, and you had to really go hard to even find stuff. And there were no internets back then.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't just look stuff up. You had to
go somewhere.
You had to go and get in your car and drive to places. So when we started out, I dropped that cassette track down, Since You've Been Gone. And I was watching in my rearview mirror, and when that came on, they jumped like a foot in my back seat. And they're like, I have never heard a car stereo sounded like that. It was priceless. It was absolutely priceless. But those are the kind of stories that keep you going for me,
Mm-hmm.
Just little tidbits.
Well, we're going to play Change is Coming. So this is White Witches, Change is Coming. Have a listen.
Which is coming, yes, we'll give it a shot. You know it all depends on discovering the pot. The night is young, so it's time to go out. We're gonna show you what this dream is about. Soon you'll hear us in your city. Change is coming, the witch is coming now. No more messing, no more screwing around. Change is coming, no more running now. always moving, always grooving around. The night is young, now it's time to go out. I'm gonna show you what this band is about. The witch is coming, yes, we'll give it a shot. You know it all depends on the stirring of pot. Soon you'll hear us in your city. Change is coming, the witch is coming now. No more messing, no more screwing around. Change is coming, no more running now. Always moving, always grooving around. Change is coming, the witch is coming now. No more messing, no more screwing around. Change is coming, no more running now. Always moving, always grooving around. Yeah!
And that was Change is Coming by White Witch. I just wanted to say before we get back into our conversation that if you are a musician that has new music coming out, new albums, new whatever, you can actually advertise that on the Story Podcast, and we'll put out a little blurb and slides during those songs so that everybody can see. Back to our conversation. We were having a conversation during the song about failure and success. Do you want to go on about that?
Yes, I want to say this because my goal is not to offend anybody, especially the younger bands. But I want to say this because this is a fact of life. Failure is a prerequisite for success.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to learn more from your failures than you ever will from your successes. And you have to fail before you can succeed.
Absolutely.
There's no way around that. And you can say, oh, he's this or he's that. But I'm a lot older than most of you. And I've seen it and lived it. Believe me, I have. And I'm just telling you that don't get so upset when you fail. You should nurture that and say, you know what? I learned from this. It's going to make you bigger, better, and stronger. So don't get caught up if you have something fails here or there. Just move it aside or go over it, and it'll make you better. I promise.
Yeah, and that even goes for a wide range of things too. Because I'll even say, well, if you focus on what you messed up, you're not going to get better. Like it's the same idea during a song. If you mess up during the song, you better not focus on that because you're going to mess up the entire rest of the song.
That's a fact.
And the same thing goes for bigger stuff. Like I had a senior recital here, and I thought I knew what I was doing, but obviously I didn't. And I forgot to have a proper rehearsal where people knew when they were going on. So there was a situation where things didn't go as smoothly as they could have. And yeah, I was embarrassed. Yeah, it hurt. But you know what? I'm not going to do it again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're the kind of things that you learn from the first time. And some lessons in life. Every person's different on how they handle things. Some people, they'll make the same mistake over and over and over and over and over and over. Some lessons, ouch, man, that hurt. It only takes one time. You're like, I'll never do that again.
Absolutely.
And that's called being human. it's a process you have to go through to get stronger, smarter, and better. It's just a fact of life.
And so, moving on into the story of your career, after White Witches, you start up another band called the TRACK Supergroup. Tell me about that. Why'd you start it? What's going on?
A lot of my friends were telling me that I should do. They're like, White Witches is a very cool band, but we would like you to record some songs from the 60s and 70s that are more intimate and softer. Because White Witch is a hard rock band. Not that real heavy stuff, but it's a hard rock band.
Right.
And the name kind of they get reservations until they hear the music and like, oh, that's not bad. You know what I mean? Because my guitar player, I'm just gonna say, he's world class.
You're Bret Alexander, right?
Well, in that band he is, but I mean for White Witch, Doug Lehman.
I see, yeah.
I mean he's a pretty top shelf. And same with Bret. I mean, Bret can play like 6-7 instruments. He's one of those. This is what's great about having Bret as a friend. When you have somebody they call him 4 or 5 for ones. He's a producer. He's a director. He can play any instrument. He can sing back. There's so many things that he can do. It's like, he's one of my 5 for 1 friends or 4 for 1. The dudes that are multifaceted that can multitask or do
multiple things,
execute multiple things, and is at a very high level. That's what Bret is. He's one of the most intelligent human beings that I've ever, and I'm blessed to. And getting back to your question, people were asking me to do this stuff, so I gave Bret a call naturally, and he said, Jeff, I'd love to do that. And he said, I have just the right drummer in mind. And I said, who would that be? And he said, Jeremy Hummel. And I was like, you can get him? And he's like, well, for a project like this, I can. And it came together just like that.
And Jeremy Hummel, for those who don't know, is as the original drummer of Breaking Benjamin.
Correct. Oh, he's one of those people that when we first met in the studio, he was different looking than me, and I don't want to say this and offend anybody, but he was so cool looking. I mean, he had different really interesting tattoos from when he was in Breaking Benjamin, and a little bit of hardware, here and there. And I thought, wow, this is going to be interesting. And as it turned out, the dude, I think, he's probably 16. I don't know. He's quite a bit younger than me, but the dude's playing abilities, you'd swear to God he was 60 years old. The dude could play anything. And I mean, we did Indian Reservation from Paul Revere and the Raiders. Cherokee people, that song. And there's parts in there that you have to sound like you're an Indian playing on a hollow log or a tan-skinned tubular drum. I mean, he does all that and switches right into the other stuff. I mean, that song's got all kinds of stuff going on in it. And I couldn't believe how his skill level was so high. It's songs that were 40 years older than him. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow, this is unbelievable.
So that was more of a cover band.
Yeah, but we have a couple originals. In fact, one of them is on. One of them, I think you're going to play later. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Take My Advice.
Yeah,
that's a song I wrote.
That's actually very fitting for the conversation we had leading out of the last song, for sure. Tell me about Take My Advice.
Well, it's kind of another one of them stories of my life, and pretty much everything in there is just a life experience. And Bret had a really, really nice Hammond B3 organ in there. And I'm like, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, we're using that on every song I can get it in. And I had him set up mics, like 5 different mics, because those Leslie cabinets, they have a revolving speaker in them. And you have to have mics right in the sound holes. But I stole a page out of Jimmy Page's recording book. We put another microphone 3 feet away, and another microphone 6 feet away, and another microphone 9 feet away, and moved it up. So there's certain things that you can't fake. I mean, you can simulate all kinds of things with with processor with the gear that there is available today.
Mhm.
We didn't use that. We did the old fashioned thing, and there's stuff in there that the real smart people that listen to it and break it down, like they can tell you right away that was mic'd from multiple distances. The real, not
did
the
it.
average person doesn't know that,
Right.
but the people that do know it are like, wow, that was a brilliant move. And I'm like, well, it just stole a page out of Jimmy Page's recording. I mean, it's right there. Anybody could have did it.
Well, with that said, this is Take My Advice from the Monster Track Supergroup.
Take my advice, folks, say to me, you're wasting the best years of life. Settle down, have a family with 2 cars, 2 kids, a wife. But I know what I want, I know what I need, I know that I'm going alone. The simple life ain't meant for me, so I'm gonna make it alone. I'm saying goodbye, but I'll be back for you, baby. I'm saying goodbye, so don't give up on me, girl. Sometimes I hide out in a place far away, away from the big city lights. The windows and walls are friends of mine. Good listeners give good advice. I think of the world and all that we see, and somehow things ain't going right. It's hard to believe in heaven above when daylight seems darker than night. Say goodbye, but I'll be back for you, baby. Say goodbye, so don't give up on me, girl. Take my advice, folks, say to me, you're wasting the best years of life. Settle down, have a family with 2 cars, 2 kids, a wife. But I know what I want, I know what I need, I know that I'm going alone. The simple life ain't meant for me, so I'm gonna make it alone. I'm saying goodbye, but I'll be back for you, baby. I'm saying goodbye, so don't give up on me, girl.
that was Take My Advice by the Monster Track Supergroup. Now we're kind of rounding out our time, but there was another topic I wanted to get to before we head off. You decided to start up a TV show.
Yeah, 8 years ago, actually. This is our 8th season. Who would have ever thought that? Out of a garage in the middle of nowhere.
So, tell me why.
Because I can.
That's a fair enough point.
And, you know, the way my life is now, I'm not able to travel on long distances or be out for long periods of time because I have 4 parents that I have to help if they need me that are in their late 80s. I have a mother and a stepdad and a father and a stepmother. And my game has changed. You know, I have responsibilities that are more important than my music. And the only thing in the world that's more important than my dream is my parents. That's it. Nobody else, nothing, no outside things, absolutely zero. And now my game has changed. So I had to figure out something that I could do at home that's only 150 feet from the house. I mean, because we've had things just go wrong. Like Steve Vai would say, it's just the way it is. Things are going to go wrong.
It is, yeah.
And I want to be there in case it does.
Right.
Because I love them dearly. And so I started this thing up. What's really neat is when I was little, I'm going to say this real quick. When I was little, we had a TV tower right across from where the studio is on the other hill. It's still there. The tower's still there. The wooden shed is kind of deteriorated, as you can imagine from being back in the 70s. But we had a telephone cable, we had TV lines that went down to like 4 or 5 houses. And back then the cable, the TV cable was just bare copper. There was no coating on the outside of it. And every time it would snow, a tree branch landed on it or your TV's gone. So I remember trudging up through there as a little kid with my great uncle, fixing the TV so we would have TV. Then in 1981, my dad bought a 12-foot satellite dish. It was the second one in Lycoming County. He bought it from the guy that sold them. And for the first 6 months, I was seeing things that nothing was censored. You could see the parliamentary procedures in Israel. You could see all kinds of stuff. I mean, It was unlimited, and it was a free for all. You could see until the government stepped in, and
it's like when TV was good, right?
Well, that's when this is before MTV that came right in, and MTV came in. But I mean, I saw a band called Honeymoon Suite. They have a song called New Girl Now. I got a new girl now. They're a real cool band. Anyway, I saw them from the Las Vegas cable channel. And I'm like, wow, these guys are really good. 6 months later, they were on MTV. I mean, there were so many I can't even name. And like Dexy Midnight Runners. Come on, Eileen. Oh, I swear. I saw that video before it was on TV. I'm like, wow, these guys are wild. Because they're wearing bib overhauls and you knew the song was pretty filthy. The lyrics were pretty right. Once you figure it all out. And I was like, and once they hit MTV, they exploded. I mean, that band exploded worldwide. They were licking that stuff up worldwide on a global level.
And so fast forward all the way to here, you decided to do it yourself.
Yeah. I was like, my TV's been in my family's blood since I was real little. And it just seemed like something that I'd be good at or know a little bit about. And I've already got 35 years in the music business. I mean, I'm connected like a lightning rod to bands and musicians. So I thought, if I can get them to come out here, it's not like being in town. There's nothing out there except trees and bear and deer and coyotes and woodpeckers and stuff like that. There's nothing else there to molest your musical creative day. And it's working. People like coming. I've had bands say, you know what, I'd come out here. I'd be willing to pay $250 just to come out here and sit for the afternoon with my kids. Because we have people bring their kids. Some people bring their moms. Some people bring their girlfriends and their dog. We've had all different things out there. And, it's just it's a different experience.
So what is the format of your show?
We usually have 5 songs on each episode, I have sponsored commercials from like Bret Alexander and Coors Light, and I have some pretty heavy duty sponsors, and we put it all together with neat little things, and I try to keep it fresh, and we send it out, and it airs on WHVL and State College, which covers Johnstown, Altoona, and State College, and they're pumped into all the facilities at Penn State. So it's a pretty cool thing.
What are some of the greatest guests that you think you've had on so far?
Wow. In 8 years, as you can imagine, we've had lots and lots of bands. You know,
Because you do them quite often too, like
almost every weekend. But
Yeah.
if it snows and it's really icy and stuff,
it ain't happening.
I have to cancel them because I cannot allow someone to slip and fall, because it would just be a disastrous thing for me. So I'd rather, like, you know what? I send them a picture in the morning. This is what it looks like. You're going to have to come back up another day, because I want them to see
Right,
exactly what it is for
You're
what
not
it,
BSing that.
for real,
Yeah.
so they know. And because I hate canceling. I'm like I told you that story about John Jett. I it just ain't in my blood to cancel stuff. But so I don't call it a cancel. I just reschedule.
Reschedule, yes.
Yeah, it makes it the sting less.
Yes.
You know. So, you know, I would have to say at the top, Bret Alexander.
Mm.
I mean, his songs like "Drive Back Home" about his grandmother was buried in the cemetery, and I mean, it's just so stirring the way he does things. I'm so proud to be his friend. Right now, there's a really hot band. I mean, they're younger. I've had them play at some benefits I've done. They've been on my show before. They're called the Heartstrings, and they're coming in this Saturday.
Mm.
I'm telling you what, they're all brothers, 3 of them, drummer, singer, guitar player. They're all like, they could all be models. It's weird that they've got that much talent, and they all look like they could be models. I mean, you could take any one of them and put them on the front of cover. I mean, they're all very attractive looking kids, and they're only in their early 20s. But I'm telling you what, it ain't the looks that got them there. It's their talent. They're really, really good, and they're only going to get better. None of them are into dope. None of them does dumb things. They're just
Good.
really
Yes.
good. And I want to say this one thing. I did a benefit here a couple months ago, and they showed up. They were on the bill, and they came in, and Jacob, the guitar player, he came up and he goes, "We did a show earlier today, and we took a collection for you for this benefit." And he pulls out this wad of cash out of his hand. I don't even know how much. He goes, "I don't know how much is here, but it's for you." I almost started crying. Nobody's ever done nothing like that. It was for kids that age to have that capacity and that compassion. You don't see that today.
No.
It was incredible. And look, I got goosebumps again. Check those goosebumps out. And that is why I will continue to do everything I can to help that band get to the top. I mean, they can do it. I believe that in my heart.
Well, man, this has been great. I've had a great time.
I did too, and I'm very grateful for you having me here today. And I hope we can do it again. And you're invited to come up to my place, and we can interview you. And you know, because that's how it should work. You know.
Yeah.
And you have an open invitation, my friend.
Man, I will gladly accept that. And yeah, I'll have you back on the show. There are a few last questions I'd like to ask a lot of my guests. So, I mean, you've done a lot of things, and you've had a lot of shows, and you've had over 30 years worth of music
Way over.
and shows and stuff.
Yep.
What is one of the funniest or maybe worst things that ever happened to you guys on stage?
Ooh, boy. Well, I don't want to use the worst thing because I don't want to go there. But I know what you mean. But,
Yeah. Sometimes the worst things can be really funny.
we had to after 23 or 24 years, we had to let our bass player go.
Mm.
And it was hard, but you know, we had one particular night at a place called the Log Cabin in Muncie. Huge, the place was packed. And you know, we seen it coming for a long time, but this particular night was dreadful. And he was just completely unmanageable. turning the back to the crowd, smoking cigarettes during our songs.
Wow.
And at the end of the night, my guitar player just came up to me and said, either you fire him or we're done. And I've been waiting, I was waiting I knew it was coming, but I couldn't do it until I heard it from them. And we loved him. We bent our backs trying to keep him in line, but it just, unfortunately, it came to a point where we couldn't work with him anymore. And that's, when you have a friend and you play with a band, and he was a good writer for 23, 24 years. It's one of the hardest things you will ever have to do if you want to continue your dream, is to let one of those players go. Because there's people playing in bands now that are barely that age, 24. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And playing in a band with somebody that long. And as far as some of the funniest things, there's just too many for me to pick one. So I'm probably gonna have to pass on that one.
All right.
But I'll do it the next time.
Yeah, next time,
I
yeah.
just need to think it out, because I don't want to. I'm one of them people that I hate hurting people. I hate offending people, and I'll go to great lengths to avoid it, even though I'm like, oh, I give it to them. But I'm better now that I'm older. When I was younger, dude, I wasn't like that. I mean, something was wrong, I'm going to blast mode you completely out of the pond into the next county.
Right.
And as I've gotten older, and I've become much more understanding and caring, and I try to help everybody, every band that comes in front of me. I do the best that I can to help them. And I don't make no money at it. It's not about money.
Oh yeah,
It's about helping other people
do what they love.
smile and I got every show I have. I can show you pictures. I can show you the video and stop it and see people smiling like they're having a musical orgasm. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
And that is the kind of stuff that you can't fake.
No.
And that's what I get by having this TV show. And that's what makes me feel good, because I know I'm bringing out the best in these people.
Well, we'll end off with this. Oh, I'll get 2 more questions out of you. What is one of the most memorable lessons you've ever learned?
Boy, I tell you what, I'm not afraid to say this. I have failed, crashed and burned, and done stupid stuff thousands of times. I have failed more than anyone out there listening and watching. I have failed and done dumb stuff more than anyone that I know alive. And even at the time, I knew I shouldn't be doing this. Like what I've learned, I would say, if you really love your family and your friends, and you're on dope or you're an alcoholic, you need to stop, because you're hurting people around you. And I've been in more mental institutions, rehabs, and, I've learned that I don't want to go back there. So I would say for the best thing I've learned is to love the life that you have, make the most of what you have, because one day you won't have it.
One day it might be gone.
It will be gone.
One day you'll be gone.
You'll be gone. So make the most of every day and try to do good.
It's a great piece of advice.
Thank you.
Last question. What do you want to do next? What are some things you're working on?
White Witch is going to be recording a couple new songs in May. I got Betty Ford going to be coming in. It's going to be a bunch of stuff coming in all on the same day. It's May 11th and May 12th. Because my guitar player is flying up from Florida because it's Mother's Day week. That's when he comes up to see his parents. I try to schedule things that we can accomplish, because even though we can't play a lot like we used to, we keep making new albums and videos and putting those out, which, it's the game we have to play now.
Mm-hmm.
We have to play it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I still get off on receiving a CD, a new song in the mail, because I'm like, I got a new CD from Doug today. And so I have Betty Ford, I have White Witch, and Monster Track are all going to record 1 or 2 songs. And we'll be putting out new music, and that's I really enjoy that. I love being in a studio with other musicians that I love. And sometimes it gets a little gamey in there with the guys because it is what it is.
Right.
But it's a process. I mean, Van Gogh and Thomas Paine, their clothes used to rot right off of their body. Their clothes would fall off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not comparing us to them, but I'm just saying that people that are insanely or talented or are doing something that's
They're passionate.
yeah,
Truly.
they don't worry about that stuff.
No, you're right.
And I'm just giving you 2 examples. I can name 10 more, but those 2 particular people. In fact, Thomas Paine did more for our Declaration than the people that are written on there. And when they would have events where they would need him to show up, like these royalty parties in the state of New York, he wouldn't ever take a bath. So they would hire these French maids, and he couldn't understand what they were saying, and they'd gang up on him quick and get him in a tub.
That's really funny.
That's a true story. I mean, it's just crazy that people that are really creative have crazy traits in there. You know what I mean? And
I know what you mean.
It's just
It's life.
It is. They didn't worry about political. They just
They just did what they wanted to do.
exactly.
Well, I'm really happy to have you on. Be sure to check out the Pennsylvania Pipeline Music TV. The link will be in the description. They have a show. I mean, you have it recorded. Do you have a date when they usually debut?
Well, we try to drop one at least one a month. So I try to, there's never a set time. The last 2 months,
Gotcha.
the first landed on a Wednesday. We drop our stuff on Wednesdays. And I'm glad I picked that day and what's really neat is there's other people that are starting stuff, but they're all staying away from Wednesday. That's all I really care. I hope they all do good. I hope they all do, similar things, but just leave Wednesday go.
Right.
That's all I care. Because I wouldn't do it to anybody else. I would never, if I knew somebody had something kind of cool going, and it's the only thing they really had, I wouldn't be ignorant enough
Step on their
to
toes.
step on their stuff and just say, you know what, I don't care. Because I'm not like that.
No, and neither should anybody.
No.
The great thing about this area, I do believe, is that we're all willing to collaborate with each other and we all support each other.
Yup, and it's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful
It
thing.
is.
It's rare.
I'm telling everybody out there, there's a lot of crazy, messed up things going on in the world, but there is still a lot of beautiful things going on. You just have to look for them.
And turn off the TV.
Yes.
Yeah. So this has been the Story Podcast. My name is Corey Rosen. You can find out more about the show and what I do at CoreyRosenProductions.com. That's CORYROSEN Productions.com. There you can find out more about me and my personal projects and this podcast. And you can find out all past 133 episodes that I've done so far.
Great.
And we got more on the way. This Friday, we have renowned children's music artist Stephen Courtney. He has 5 songs on Sesame Street. If that says anything, that's amazing. And he has we're going to continue his story about talking about his award-winning children's show, the Stephen Courtney Channel. So I'm really excited to talk about that and what it's like to write music for children, because that's not an easy thing to do.
No, it is not.
And then this Saturday we have Adam Yarger. He is a country songwriter. He's doing incredible stuff, collaborating with some incredible country stars of today. So I'm really excited to talk to him about all of that. And then this next Sunday we have Big Mama. She is a music impersonator.
Wow.
So she will do cover songs of 60s, 70s, 80s, 50s, whatever, and will dress the era and will have the whole get up as if you were back when.
That's neat.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to talk to her, find out where she gets her dresses, and figure out, how do you put on an act that is over 50, 60, 70 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough act to follow. I wouldn't want to have to come on after that.
Well, with all that said, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will see you guys later.
Thank you very much, Corey.
Of course. Bye.
So how do you think I did?